Hello everyone, my name is Joanne Kuria and this is Elephant Cast. Joining me in a conversation today is Waikwa Wanyoike, who's an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. He's also a barrister and solicitor in the Law Society of Upper Canada. He has worked as a citizenship, immigration and refugee practitioner in both Canada and Kenya, and even took part in drafting our Citizenship and Immigration Act. He is currently the Executive Director of Katiba Institute and of course my senior in the profession. Welcome, Waikwa. So let's get into the citizenship conversation. You have already preempted the Constitution. Earlier on, as I was introducing you, I said that you are part of drafting the Kenya Citizenship and Immigration Act. Now, what do these pieces of legislation have to say in regards to citizenship? How does one acquire citizenship in Kenya?
There are various ways that you can be confirmed to be a citizen of Kenya.
Mm-hmm.
The first way is what we call citizenship by birth.
Okay.
And if there is any hierarchy on citizenship, then that's the highest you can get on citizenship. Citizenship by birth in Kenya doesn't mean you're born in Kenya.
Okay.
What is required is to be able to show that one of your parents was at the point when you're being born a citizen of Kenya.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not that for Kenyans born abroad or Kenyans who have children abroad, those children are Kenyan citizens.
Okay.
And maybe just to give the best example, if we take Obama example for,
Yes.
because everybody knows Obama.
Yeah.
His father was born in Kenya, he was Kenyan. Obama wasn't born in Kenya. But because Obama's father was born in Kenya, even though Obama was not born in Kenya, he has that right under Kenyan constitution to be a Kenyan citizen. And in fact, a Kenyan citizen not by registration, but by birth.
Okay.
So that's one way. The second way that you gain Kenyan citizenship is through registration.
Okay.
There are Kenyans, there are people who are not born Kenyans, they are not born of Kenyan parents, but for some reasons find themselves in Kenya or find themselves with Kenyans. So the best examples are marriage. Those people have a right when they apply to be recognized as Kenyans, and so they do that through registration. You go through a process. The current constitution says that to gain Kenyan citizenship by registration, you need 7 years. Except there is one category of people who are able to gain Kenyan citizenship much easily, who are children found in Kenya whose citizenship is not ascertainable. So they also can get citizenship by registration, even without going through the rigors of 7 years. So we have sort of those two categories of citizenship. The law, the citizenship and immigration law, basically just confirms what is in the constitution, because a law that is implementing a constitution cannot go beyond what is in the constitution. So, for example, the law cannot say that if you're born of a Kenyan parent, you're not a citizen because of this and this reason, unless that is already in the constitution. It can't take that. It can't override.
Okay, that's good to know. So you've mentioned the citizenship by birth and by registration as the two ways that one can acquire citizenship in Kenya.
Yes.
Tell me about the distinct differences, if any, between these two in regards to the rights that you enjoy as a citizen.
So the distinction, so first of all, yes, under the Constitution, there are certain rights you enjoy depending on the nature of your citizenship. And it's not so much largely based on whether it's citizenship by birth or citizenship by registration, except I think for running for presidency, where I think you require to be a citizen by birth. But it depends on whether you have multiple citizenship. So the limitations are mostly on dual citizenship or multiple citizenship. So for example, if you wanted to become a member of parliament, you cannot be a member of parliament when you have dual citizenship. That's a limitation under the constitution. If you want to be president, you cannot be president and be a dual citizen. If you want to be a member of county assembly, actually, you cannot when you are a dual citizen. So that's the distinction. You find the distinction is more in the duality or multiplicity of citizenship as opposed to registration. Remember, some people become citizens by registration when they don't have any other citizenship. Because they were stateless person. So somebody like that who doesn't have a citizenship of another country then does not fall under certain limitations that befall people who have dual citizenship. Some people also become citizen by registration, yet they lose their old citizenship. Because if the laws of the country from where they had citizenship means that if you acquire citizenship of Kenya, you lose your citizenship, then they end up only with one citizen. So it's a bit complex in that sense.
Okay, you've actually preempted what I was going to ask about voluntary renunciation of citizenship.
Yes.
We've had stories of athletes, for instance, who go to a country like Bahrain and then they renounce their Kenyan citizenship and become Bahrainian because Bahrain doesn't have dual citizenship. So it's sort of like choosing either or. So once that happens, can you then revoke that renunciation? Can you decide, okay, Bahrain is not working for me, I want to go back to Kenya? What happens with that?
Yes. So the interesting thing when you read the Constitution, and especially I believe Article 14, which is the citizenship by birth provision in the Constitution, it starts by saying a citizen by birth does not lose the citizenship, their citizenship just because they acquired the citizenship of another country.
Oh, okay.
Which confirms two things. One, it confirms that citizenship by birth is in perpetuity. Maybe you could put it on hold, but it will never go away, right? So in a situation, for example, where for you to gain a citizenship of another country, you must renounce Kenyan citizenship. You may do that, and I'm taking the situation of athletes, countries which require renunciation, and I'll come to that in a minute. You may do that, but the moment you think, okay, I'm tired with this Bahrainian or whatever country, I'm not sure whether you need to renounce to become Bahrainian, but whatever country that requires renunciation, then you can come back to your citizenship by birth in Kenya. And it's only that now the law provides for procedure on how you regularize, not how you regain, because already you have it. It's really regularization. I really want to stay with this question of renunciation because there is a myth being peddled, and mostly by government and mostly by politicians who should know better. People like Matiang'i, who sometimes we doubt even the academic qualifications at this point. You don't go professing you have a PhD when you can't interpret basic law. Renunciation, not every country where you gain dual citizenship requires renunciation. Or not every country, even where you gain their citizenship, requires renunciation. Renunciation is a legal process. So it's not just because you acquired a dual citizenship, then it means you have, you've renounced your citizenship. In the Miguna's case, because it's hard to stay away from Miguna's case, the insistence is that he's lost his Kenyan citizenship because according to what they're saying, he gained Canadian citizenship. But I know for a fact, even those people who gain Canadian citizenship are never required by Canada to renounce their other citizenship. So renunciation doesn't apply in Canada. It may apply in other countries, but it doesn't. And that is important to make that distinction.
Okay. Let's juxtapose the two constitutions that we have had over the past maybe 30 years. That's the August 2010 constitution and the post-August, what we now have. In terms of citizenship, what are the differences that we now have that we didn't have in the previous constitution regarding citizenship?
So I think the biggest difference, and maybe I've surprised my viewers, is the belief that the old constitution, the 1969 constitution, did not confer or did not allow for dual citizenship. So that the myth out there is that whenever a Kenyan over 18 or 21 years gained the citizenship of another country, they automatically lost their citizenship. That's the debate you hear.
Okay.
And that is the biggest distinction you hear. There's another distinction, I'll come back to that. There's another distinction relating to gender.
Yes.
You know, at some point under our old constitution, a woman could not pass their citizenship to a man.
Like a spouse?
Yeah, a spouse.
Okay.
But now with the Kenyan, with the 2010 constitution, that's not an issue.
Okay.
But it's still an issue in practice, because I've had people who've gone to apply for citizenship at the immigration office in Kenya, at Nyayo House. And the moment it's a man who needs to be sponsored to become a Kenyan citizen, we've had incidents where immigration officials are saying, no, a woman can't sponsor you because a man can never be dependent on a woman, which is misreading of the constitution. It's born out of patriarchy ideas. But going back to the issue about dual citizenship and the 1969 constitution, we already have court judgments that have already clarified that even under the old constitution, dual citizenship was possible. Okay. And the best case is a case of a gentleman who read for Wajir East constituency member of parliament position. His name is Mohammed Sirat. And when Mohammed Sirat ran for office and there was an election petition, this is 2008, so fairly recent, when we were preparing for the new constitution. When he ran for that position, and there was an election petition filed in court, the person he was going against went to court and said, but you cannot even qualify to run for this position because you are a dual citizen, because you are an Australian citizen, and even brought evidence of Australian passport and all that. But the judge clarified, the judge found two things, which is very, very fundamental. One, that there was not enough evidence to show that in fact he was an Australian citizen. But importantly, and this is what I would want people to underline, is that dual citizenship under the 1969 constitution was only prohibited for certain class of individuals, not Kenyans who were born in Kenya and who, and if I may use the term, native Kenyans. It was meant to capture non-native Kenyans. Remember, at the time we got independence, we had different types of citizens, or people enjoying citizenship. We had people from the Commonwealth countries who enjoyed Kenyan citizenship by the fact that they were considered the citizens of the Commonwealth. We had the British citizens who also enjoyed it based on that. And what the judge found in that case, and this is Justice Kimaru, is that that provision that is always quoted as prohibiting dual citizenship was only meant to capture that class of Kenyans who are not native-born Kenyans. That case went on appeal because it's very easy for people to say, oh, it's Justice Kimaru, and you know all the propaganda that is being propagated by the Itumbis and the others about the judiciary. People who cannot even write a paragraph of a judgment, yet they think they can judge judges like Justice Kimaru. It went to the Court of Appeal, and the judges who start on that, because again, if they think names of judges are important, Then I need to say who are the judges at the Court of Appeal. It was Justice Divenji, it was Justice Waki, and Justice Nashil Vishwa. They are the senior most judges as we speak at the Court of Appeal today. Even though they never confronted that direct issue of citizenship, they actually found that the appeal did not have merit because it had been overtaken by events. If the Court of Appeal had thought that Justice Kimaru had done such a great injustice by pronouncing himself the way he had, they would have reversed him on that. They didn't. So, in my view, what Matiang'i and the Kihalangwas of this world are propagating, that, for example, Miguna lost his citizenship because he acquired the citizenship of Canada, which is something they'll need to prove in court. But even assuming that is true, they still have a handle to show that, in fact, the 1969 Constitution prohibited dual citizenship for people in Miguna's position.
Okay. Okay, so you've debunked a myth, a legal myth, that dual citizenship is a novel thing, courtesy of this constitution. So you're saying that it existed in the previous constitution as well?
Yes.
So let me ask, in light of that, what is the spirit of the law surrounding dual citizenship? Because in my understanding, not every jurisdiction has it in their constitution. Why would a state like Kenya or any other that has dual citizenship find or see the need to incorporate that into their constitution?
There are many reasons for it. Some of the reasons are economic. You know that, especially with the way things happen currently, you can't stop the movement of people. Because of the movement of people, there is movement of finance. And the moment you lock out people through citizenship, then you are denying your country that benefit of finance. That's one. The second one has to do with social arrangement, family. Why would you, if you are a citizen of Uganda and you get married to a Kenyan, have to choose between Uganda and Kenya? But if you're married to a Kenyan, why shouldn't you enjoy the full benefits of being married to a Kenyan, which is citizenship? So there is that. But in the Kenyan context also, and the 2010 Constitution, and for me this is fundamental, the 2010 Constitution by nature is a restorative document.
Okay.
It was a document that was negotiated on the basis of such significant injustices that had happened in the past and which seemed to be sanctioned by the law, or which at times people used the law to show that they were sanctioned, including dual citizenship. So take the example of Miguna's case. Miguna did not leave Kenya because he wanted to leave Kenya. That is in the public domain. It's very clear. He's written about it. There are other people who can vouch for that. It's because he was exiled. He was exiled out of the country and he could not return for a very long time. He had to go on with his life. And Miguna, by talking about Miguna here, I'm not even just talking about Miguna, talking about a lot of people in Miguna's situation, including people like Raila Odinga, who at one point or another were exiled. We know Jomo Kenyatta himself was constructively exiled in Britain. Constructively is the word to note. And so there was a recognition, if you look at it from a citizenship angle, that there was a lot of injustices that had been committed in the name of the law that needed to be restored. In fact, if you see the wording of the provisions on the citizenship, that's what the provisions are trying to do. They are trying to say, even if the government thinks it had taken away your citizenship, you still have it. That's why the wording is, a citizen by birth does not lose. Instead of saying you are a citizen by birth if you are born of a Kenyan mother or a Kenyan father. The you don't lose is a restorative act by the Constitution. So in that context, when we are considering a case like Miguna's or any other case that seems to resemble Miguna, we have to recognize that the government in the past, and now we see it doing it again, has used the might of its power and used citizenship as a way of punishing people that it considered to be dissidents or people that it considered to be troublesome because it could not control them any other way. I'm sure if Miguna can take money from this government or from individuals in government, we wouldn't be talking about whether he should be allowed entry or not. It's because they find that certain individuals, you can't compromise them using traditional ways. And so for me, I think the critical thing for Kenyans to know is that the distinction, the biggest achievement rather, that this constitution has given is not just to give us rights going forward or to confirm our rights going forward, but also looking at the injustices that had happened and trying to restore those or trying to mitigate against those injustices. And citizenship is one of those.
Okay, I like the word you've used for restorative document. That's very profound. And it's funny, as you spoke, I remember reading somewhere in President Arap Moi's regime, he revoked or took away the citizenship of journalist Salim Loan, and then only restored it a year later. And so it just feels like it's really a tool, a tactic that has been employed by different individuals in government to, I don't know, for whatever motives that they have. But speaking of Miguna, because you mentioned Miguna, I'd like to read a tweet that he wrote not so long ago, and I'll quote, "In 1962, Raila Odinga fled to East Germany on a Tanzanian passport. In 1991, Raila Odinga fled to Norway on a Ugandan passport. Ngugi wa Thiong'o fled to the UK in 1982 on a Ghanaian passport, but they were not forced to return to Kenya as foreigners. Am I a second-class citizen?" Miguna asks. So it's, I think what we were preempting earlier and we were saying, is there a hierarchy of citizenship? He's a dual citizen. He's been treated the way he has been treated. And he asks a valid, pertinent question. Am I a second-class citizen?
Just to answer that, really, the Miguna situation is a basic misapprehension or misapplication of the law. I think it's the misapplication and intentional misapplication. When he asks why shouldn't he be allowed, even though he may have left the country originally. And don't forget, Miguna has been here, so he's been able to use his Kenyan passport and Kenyan documents to enter and leave Kenya. So we're not even talking about the Miguna of the 1990s or the early 1990s, late 1989 and 1980s when he fled the country. But I think the fundamental question there is something that the government has been raising about the fact that he now doesn't have a valid passport because the government took his passport and mischievously, after it had been ordered by the court to surrender that passport, mischievously, and I can stand by this, decided to perforate the passport so that it can make the case that his passport is not valid, and now says you have to enter using whatever travel document you have, and that travel document is a Canadian travel document. And he's asking, in a similar situation, why were these individuals not required to enter using foreign documents? I think the fundamental misunderstanding here, and I hear a lot of Kenyans asking, what's the big deal? Why can't Miguna just allow his Canadian passport, if he has it, to be stamped so that he can enter? But the fundamental misunderstanding is that a passport grants you citizenship. It doesn't. If you look at the Constitution, and specifically Article 12, a passport, like an ID, is a document of identification. It's not because you have a passport that you have citizenship. No. And in fact, a lot of us don't have passports. It's a minority and a super minority of Kenyans who have passports. Is it that all these other Kenyans are not citizens? Because basically the argument that the government is trying to advance is that unless you can produce a passport, we will not recognize your citizenship. So it's the passport that is granting citizenship. That's a fundamental misunderstanding and mistake. A passport is just an identification document. Yes, under the international civil aviation guidelines and laws, it's the document that is generally accepted as travel document from one country to another. But remember, not every country requires that you have a passport to enter and leave a country. In fact, there are countries which you can just enter from one country to another using your ID, your driver's license. Because really all they're checking is to confirm that you're the person who you say you are.
Yeah.
When Miguna comes and insists, I have my Kenyan identity card. And this is a document that confirms that I am a Kenyan citizen. And you should be allowing me to enter using that. Or you even know me. And you should allow me to enter because you know me and you know I'm a Kenyan citizen. Mm-hmm. There should not be a dispute because it's really not the document that is giving him that access to citizenship. Obviously, for good order, it's good to have these documents, but in exceptional cases, documents or lack of documents should not be used to victimize people from enjoying their rights. And I think that's the fundamental question he's raising in that tweet.
Okay. So sticking on travel documents and visas, take us through a scenario where a person enjoys dual citizenship, say Australian and Kenyan, yes, for instance. How do you use your documents to gain entry and exit from one country to the other?
Yeah, we are talking about dual citizenship, but there are people who have multiple citizenship. Mm. So let's add another country, okay, Singapore. Okay. So you are a citizen of Singapore, you're a citizen of Australia, and you're also a citizen of Kenya. Yeah. To get to Australia from Kenya, you go through Singapore. Yeah. When you leave, and this is very practical information. Mm-hmm. When you want to fly out of the country, the first person you encounter when you get to the airport, yes, are people just clearing you to confirm that you have a ticket, yeah, and you're the person who say you are. Mm-hmm. You can even use your ID, mm-hmm, and the ticket, yes, to confirm that. Yeah. When you go to the airline check-in, mm-hmm, counter, they have to confirm two things. Mm-hmm. They have to confirm three things. You have the ticket, you're the person who say you are, and you are allowed to go to that country. Mm-hmm. So what document of travel or permission do you have? Mm-hmm. Because the airlines have certain obligations in carrying people who don't have documentation. Mm-hmm. If you're going to Australia and you're Kenyan, Australia requires Kenyans to have a visa. If you show only your Kenyan passport, they'll tell you you can't travel because you can't show us you have proof of Australian visa. So what you do at the counter is you show, mm-hmm, your Australian passport. Okay. But beyond that, you have to clear with Kenyan immigration to go to board your plane. They will ask you, if you show them your Australian passport, then they'll ask you, how have you been here? Yeah. Under what authority? Yeah. So you show them the Kenyan passport to, yeah, show them I was legitimately in the country. Yeah. When you are transiting in Singapore, if you decide I want to get out of the airport and go run around the city or do whatever, maybe for 2 days, yeah, they cannot admit you without a Singaporean passport. So when you get there, then you don't show your Australian passport. Yeah. You show your Singaporean passport. And then when you're leaving, mm-hmm, you show your Australian passport to show you have authority or authorization to be in Australia. It's just a basic administrative whatever. In Miguna's case, yeah, what they were insisting is because you may have showed an Canadian passport, mm-hmm, and I'm saying you may have showed because this case is being litigated and there are evidentiary issues. When you are in Dubai or when you're in London or whatever, you must show us that document. That's not how it works. Mm-hmm. And if our immigration people are processing it that way, mm-hmm, then they lack the basic understanding, mm-hmm, of immigration law. Okay.
Wow, that's complex travel. So you have to really travel with all the 3 passports that you have.
Yes, if you're traveling through those 3 countries. Yeah. In fact, sometimes you don't have to be traveling through those countries, but if it's a country where maybe you don't require a visa because of one passport, you're Kenyan, so if you're going through Uganda, you don't need a visa, but if you're Singaporean, you may need a visa, or Australian. then you use your Kenyan passport.
Yeah.
So it's just an administrative functionality, just to know how to negotiate around your work.
Okay. So using the same example of being a citizen of 3 countries, Kenya, Singapore, and Australia, on the Kenyan back end, so to speak, how do you go about registration? Is it a natural thing that you become a dual citizen? Do you have to go through some procedure here for the country to be notified that you are now a dual citizen of this country and another, for instance? What is the procedure of dual citizenship from the Kenyan back end?
Again, another myth that we hear government propagandists, including Matiang'i, propagate. That the law, if you don't register, then you're not dual citizen, or you don't have your Kenyan citizenship. And I take you back to where we started. Government processes are not the ones that are giving you citizenship. So what the best they can say is to regularize, just for purposes of their administrative purposes or administrative convenience. So what the law currently says, the Citizenship and Immigration Law, is that upon gaining citizenship of a second country, you must notify the Kenyan authorities within, I think, 3 months of gaining that citizenship. So you're not notifying them so that they can now give you or grant you a citizenship. You're doing it for good order.
Okay.
You're doing it for good order. There are certain reasons why the government may want to know who is a dual citizenship, dual citizen or a multiple citizen, but you're not doing it so that now the government can say, now you have your citizenship, your Kenyan citizenship. No.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So I think back to the Miguna conversation. In 2017, he was vying for the gubernatorial Nairobi county seat, and he lost.
Yes.
If he did win that seat, would he then have to renounce Canadian citizenship?
Okay, so I start from a different position from you, which is if Miguna is a Canadian citizen.
Yes.
So for me, Miguna is hypothetical. Yeah, it could be anyone. In fact, I hear that this government has a lot of state officers who are dual citizen, who don't qualify to hold state office when they are dual citizen. So there are a lot of them actually who are just probably quiet and watching to see how this Miguna saga gets resolved. Let's assume he is, or let's assume a person runs for office who already has dual citizenship, and they win the seat. And by the way, I should make a distinction. Not every state office prohibits one from being a dual citizen. For example, if you need to be a judge, you don't have to, and you have dual citizenship, you don't have to give up your dual citizenship.
Okay.
If you want to be a commissioner in one of the constitutional commissions, you are allowed to be a dual citizenship. Dual citizen. But for presidency, for member of county assembly, for member of parliament, that is Senate, and National Assembly, for governor, you cannot hold dual citizen while you are in. So what the courts have said, if you are a person who holds dual citizenship or more than 2 citizenship, and you want to run for any of those positions, MP, governor, MCA, president, actually let me exclude presidents from it, but the other positions. If you need to run for that position, you can run while you're still holding more than 1 citizenship. However, upon being elected, you cannot be allowed to take oath while you still hold more than 1 citizenship.
Okay.
So you have to forego all the other citizenship. That's what the court have clarified. So let's assume again in a Miguna hypothetical case that he's a Canadian citizen. Let's assume that he won against Sonko. What he would have been told is if you have Canadian citizenship or any other citizenship, you have to give up. that before you take the oath of office, and that would have been regular according to how the courts have interpreted the law. And this is not just High Court, it's also the Court of Appeal.
Okay. It's interesting because I remember the American situation that you talked about earlier, how Trump had this insatiable desire or need to prove that Barack Obama was not an American citizen, wasn't born there, and hence should not run for the highest office in the land. So I guess it's the same thing that you're saying about, the president must be a citizen of that particular country. So let's end this conversation. I feel like you've really illuminated a lot of the things about citizenship and debunked many myths. We began with Miguna, let's end with Miguna. Deportation, forced exile, banishment were tactics that were also employed by colonialists to further subjugate and suppress the African voices, especially the dissenting voices in that history. And I stumbled upon an article actually yesterday. Allow me to read an excerpt of it by Kwamchetsi Makoha. And he says, the record of deportations in colonial and post-colonial East Africa is long and infamous. Wayaki Wahinga, leader of the Kikuyu, stood up to colonial officials, sentenced to deportation in Mombasa. He died en route from Nairobi. Mekathilili wa Menza, Wanje wa Mwadorikola, arrested in October 1913 for resisting labor conscription amongst the Giriama, was deported again. Harry Thuku, founder of the Kikuyu Central Association, was deported to Kismayu in Somalia in 1922. Similar tactics were employed against Kabaka Mwanga of the Kingdom of Baganda, Omukama Kabalega of Bunyora Kitara Kingdom. Both kings were deported to the Seychelles for resisting British occupation in the 1890s. And the article goes on and on. And by the way, this article is from the East African Review. So anybody who wants it can get it from there. And I found that interesting because we're talking about the late 19th century, the early 20th century, and now many, many, many years later in the 21st century, these same tactics are being employed by the government of the day. What are we doing wrong? Are we doing something wrong?
I guess you should be asking, does some of us still believe that dinosaurs exist? Because really, some of this is confirming that some of us prescribe or subscribe to the dinosaur mentality. At the end of the day, citizenship is a tool used by oppressive regimes to get rid of individuals they are not otherwise able to control, but who resonate well with the people and who oppose the excesses of those governments. And that is what happened to the Wayakis, the Mekatelilis, and others that you read from what Kwamchetsi is talking about. But from a legal standpoint, the first thing is you cannot deport a citizen. In fact, it's unfair that the media has continued to say Miguna was deported. He was not deported. Deportation is a legal process. It's a legal term. It requires certain things to be met for it to happen. The best you can say is he was removed, not
Can
deported.
you even deport a Kenyan citizen by blood?
You cannot. You cannot. And in fact, unfortunately, our government is also incorrigible. They've tried this. Again with Sirat. They did exactly what they tried to do with Miguna, where they labeled Sirat a prohibited immigrant. Remember, Matiang'i says he took away Miguna's citizenship, then labeled him prohibited immigrant, and it's through that process, or because of that, that he was able to deport him. What the court said, and this is using the old constitution, and if they were not lucky with the old constitution, certainly they will not be lucky with the new constitution. What the judge said, and this is a different judge, this is not Justice Kimawe, it was Justice Dulu. He said that he could not even find that there is any law that allows the minister to take citizenship away. And so there was no basis under which the minister could be purporting to be deporting a Kenyan citizen by birth.
Okay.
And that's the moral of Bikuna's story. And at the end of all this, that's what will, that's how people like Matiang'i will be shamed when the law prevails.
Okay.
Because as you rightly say, you cannot deport a citizen by birth. You cannot deport a citizen, period, whether they're a citizen by birth or not. And this is also because international law abhors statelessness. And the reason why the law, both local or domestic law and international law, is so protective of citizenship is because when you lose citizenship, the next stage is statelessness.
Yeah.
And there is nothing as bad or something that is frowned upon in international law as statelessness.
Okay. We must end there. Thank you so much, Waikwa, for opening our eyes and demystifying and debunking some of these myths around citizenship. And of course talking about the whole Miguna situation. And as we end, it will be an injustice to end without congratulating Katiba Institute for your recent win at the High Court. I guess it was led by you in collaboration with Africog and Okia Omtata.
Yes, that was the Election Laws Amendment Act, something else that the government tried to forcefully and procedurally force on Kenyans in late 2017.
Yeah.
And again, the message is the law always wins eventually.
The law always wins. That's his parting shot. Waikwa Wanyoike, he's an advocate of the High Court, as I said earlier, and he's the ED, Executive Director of Katiba Institute. It's been amazing talking about citizenship. I hope you have been enlightened on this Elephant Cast. My name is Joanne Kuria. Goodbye.